Salvē, amici, and welcome. Today we're going to be taking a look at verse 22, but first a review from verse 7. While the wind blows crazily in the background. There we go. And now for reading text for today. Vos adoratis quod nescitis nos adoramos quod scimus quia salus ex Judaeis est. And that's as far as we're going to make it today. It's going to be a pretty short one. So here's our rubric, and let's get going. Vos, something we've seen many times before. It's got what looks like an accusative plural ending, but really for this word, it's the nominative form. In addition to the accusative form, it's an irregular because it's a personal pronoun. So that would be second person plural, no gender. And that goes with adoratis, with our tis ending being another second person plural. In this case, it is present, active, and it is indicative. And then for our direct object, we have quod here from qui quae quod. Sometimes, I don't know, almost write weird things. So, quod introduces a relative clause, and that sets itself off with its own verb, which we have with nescitis, another tis ending there. Because of the I, we know that this is going to be exact same form, present tense as well. Okay, and then looks like we have a different clause starting here with nos, so we're going to go ahead and write down the translation for this. Vos as a pronoun with the verb is unnecessary, so it's going to be emphatic. And so the way that I normally do that, I think, is I say yourselves or himself, myself, etc. So, you yourselves worship what? Oh, I forgot to parse that. Quod, of course, is the neuter form. It could be nominative or it could be accusative, since we already have the nominative with vos. Accusative is the only option. What? Nescitis, of course, from scio to know, and the nad just makes it negative. You don't know. And then nos, the beginning of our next clause, is just the first person plural version of vos. Adoramos, mus there for another first person plural. Also present tense, the augmenting vowel right there, not augmenting, the connecting vowel. And it is active and indicative. We've got quod again. We don't need to parse it since we already have that right there. And then scimus, we have the positive version of that one. But again, this is the first person plural form. And then quia is going to be introducing a new clause. So we stop here, and I'm going to go ahead and write down what we have so far. We ourselves and then with quia, we always have the problem trying to figure out, well, what is this thing? And also with quod, really. Quia can be translated as because, showing the explanation. It can introduce a different types of clause, like in direct statements. I don't know. If I say anything more about quia and indirect statements, I'm going to contradict myself because I never remember what I say. So we need to look at the rest of the clause to figure out, is it a because quia or is it a that quia? Largely a word that we don't need to translate. So salus, that's not a verb. Ex Judaeis and est. Here's est. We've parsed that too many times to bother again. So then we've got ex was a preposition with Judaeis, that is right there. Ex takes the ablative as its ending, and Judaeis is, of course, going to be plural, and I believe it is masculine. So then salus is going going to be the subject with est, s connecting it to a prepositional phrase. So this has to be nominative. And it has to be singular because est is singular. So then the only thing we need to figure out is, well, what the gender is. Salus comes from the word salus salutis, which is a third declension. So even though it has the us, it's not going to be a second. And another peculiar thing about this is a lot, if not most, of the third declension us nouns are actually neuter, but this one is a feminine. We, of course, wouldn't be able to tell from the context here because we don't have any adjectives modifying it. And this means salvation. So then we know, then we can translate this as one of the two ways with quia. We ourselves worship what we know because salvation is ablative of source from the Jews, or the other way of translating it, introducing a direct statement. We know that salvation is from the Jews. Well, both of them work. So then, we can write down both of them as an option, or we can take a look at the Greek. Sorry, shaky camera. The setup is very instable, however you say that word. So the other option is to take a look at the Greek. If I can find my Nessel Allen, that is. It's not prepared for this quite clearly. There's the belts. So here is our Greek, verse 22 here. Blah, 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 blah. And then we get to where quia would be after ho, which corresponds to quod, and oidamen, which corresponds to skimos. We have hoti in the Greek, which corresponds to quia. And now the Greek doesn't really clear it up for us much at all. This hoti functions the same way as quia does. It can mean because, or it can mean that, introducing a direct statement. In the Greek, we see here, where did it go? There we go. He soteria ekton judaion estin. Estin here is an indicative, just like est is in our Latin. Soteria is nominative, and then judaion is functioning the same way as ex judais. So the Greek doesn't really help us figure out which of the two options is the best. So really the only thing to do is write down both of them, and then you choose which one you think makes the most sense. And there we have it. Verse 22, let's take a look at it in its own context. You yourselves worship what you don't know. We ourselves worship what we know, because, or that, salvation is from the Jews. Okay, so having had a moment to think about it a little bit more as I was writing it down, because would indicate that Jesus and company know on account of this statement. But I don't think that makes as much sense as this whole clause here being taken as the object of skimos. So it's not the purpose, it's not the explanation, not the purpose for why they know. Instead, he's declaring what they know. So I think that is the better option. Sometimes you just have to talk through these things and be completely wrong. Well, thank you very much for joining me. I hope taking a look at this has been helpful for you, and I hope that you have a very good day. Ole.